Hello, my name is Ela Kozimińska and I am the owner of Ela Valenda photography business. I do weddings and portrait photography mainly. I am going to tell you today the story of my life, how I became a photographer, what and who inspires me, and what I am working on at the moment. I come from a small village Jeloniewo, which is in the northeast of Poland. It is a wonderful land of lakes, hills and forests. I had brilliant, happy childhood there, hanging out in nature and running around beautiful places. I was about 14, 15 years old when my father traded his old, poor quality compact 35mm camera to a Russian technical miracle Zenit. I got absolutely fascinated with the camera, and first 2 years having it, I spent trying to crack the settings. My adventure with photography began for good when I started middle school and met there some other teenagers fascinated with photography. We set up a darkroom in the school cellar and I spent the most of my school time. It was definitely my breakthrough moment and I felt like I found a passion which I knew would stay with me forever. It turned out I wasn't wrong. It was a kind of magic to witness the photos appearing on the paper, and the smell of darkroom chemicals brings me back best memories. My first attempts with photos were basically experiments with everything, starting from lit up candle shots, photos with long exposure, landscapes, and of course people. Soon people became my favorite subject, and my first muse was my small cousin Magda, who I used to look after. In 2000, I started my university studies in Warsaw. I was studying Polish language and literature. I also started working at Polish press agency in photography department and soon became a photo news editor. It was the best photography school I could wish for. Those 4 years at press agency shaped me forever as a photographer. I started looking at the world differently. I've learned by observing, repeating, making mistakes and going through the same drill again and again, until I succeeded. I knew I couldn't compare myself with those best Polish photographers in the country, but taking their advice and feedback on board, I started taking documentary photos from demonstrations and other events. Holding the camera helped me to build my confidence and gave me courage to point the lens straight at people's faces to document events. That was also the moment when I saw camera as a tool of recording the reality by being a part of events, but also standing on a side and being a silent observer. The camera became my shield, which made me feel safe when I was taking photos, but also justified my presence. And it made me feel powerful. Susan Sontag in On Photography questions the power of photography, our addition to it and its capacity to render the real. She also talks about moral responsibility, which is an integral part of the photographer's life. She says, even when photographers are most concerned with mirroring reality, they are still haunted by tacit imperatives of taste and conscience. In 2004, I did my first reportage from Woodstock Festival, which is held yearly in Poland. I focused on people and action. Looking back at those photos taken 16 years ago on analog 35mm film, I feel excitement and I can see how much I have learned from the photographers who inspired me. What I love in the analog photography is the imperfection, which actually shows the truth of the moment, the colors, light and composition which are not affected by editing. But comparing analog and digital photography also raises another question about truthfulness of photography. It is commonly thought that digital photography allows to manipulate reality more, but as Matthew Biro mentions in his article From Analog to Digital Photography, it is important not to overemphasize the division between analog and digital photography. As suggested by the long history of photomontage in the 19th and 20th centuries, analog photographs have always had the power to manipulate and transform reality. Indeed, because the camera always selects or edits and otherwise changes the world that it exists before its lens. No photograph, analog or digital, can be said to represent the complete truth of its subjects or objects. In 2005, me and my husband moved to Bedford in England. That was a massive step in my life, not only personally, but also in my photography career. I started doing jobs as a photojournalist for Polish press agency in London. I was documenting political and cultural events connected with Polish community. Press photography helped me to train my eye as a photographer, to react quickly and work under pressure. Also, I have a soft spot for the music photography and absolutely love taking photos at gigs. And about 2 years ago, I started collaborating with musicians, taking photos for their commercial use and music covers. And that's the field which fascinates me, and I'm definitely going to explore it this more. In 2012, I became mother for the first time, and I realized I needed to adjust my photography work to the situation, and I started my wedding photography business. I knew I wanted to deliver something different, and I knew I wanted to develop myself, learn as much as I could as a photographer. I set up Ella Valenda photography business, and using my photojournalist background, I developed my own documentary style. Every wedding is a reportage challenge for me, as I am aware that I record the event and shape people's memories with the photos. Marvin Heiferman says, photography changes what we remember. Photography is a medium to keep a track of what has happened to us. People refer back to photographs to bring back memories and live some moments again. As a wedding photographer, I make the photo selection and decide of how my couples are going to remember their day. It is a huge responsibility. And to tell the story of the day in the most truthful way, you need to become a part of the event and like the objects you photograph. People are my favorite subject to photograph. I always try to deliver photographs where people personalities shine through. Alfred Eisenstadt said, "It is more important to click with the people than click with the shutter." And this is my photographer's motto. The photographers who inspire me are definitely the ones with documentary reportage style. My main reportage hero is definitely Alex Webb. His sense of seizing the moment, colors, and the ability of telling the story is absolutely mesmerizing. My other inspirations are Magnum Agency photographers like Elliot Elwitt or Alessandra Sanguetti. And above all, Henri Besson, Cartier-Bresson, a master of decisive moment. As he said, "To me, photography is the simultaneous recognition, in a fraction of a second, of the significance of an event, as well as of a precise organization of forms which give the event its proper expression." I absolutely agree with Cartier-Bresson, and his words have always been a great inspiration for my photography practice. I chase the light and wait for the best moment to click the shutter. I believe that makes the reportage photography worthy. It's a way to extract the essence from the moment in time. At the moment, I am working on a project focused on COVID-19. During lockdown, I started taking family portraits outside of people's houses, and I called them portraits. I think it was a kind of a phenomenon that people requested to be photographed in front of their houses. An Englishman's home is his castle, and the lockdown situation made this proverb valid again. I was taking photos of the people who were locked in their houses for quite a while, and the photo session was a great opportunity for them to get dressed nicely, put a smile on their faces, and brave the reality. Possibly, it was a way to shape their memory from this time, to make it better, to look it more positive and happier than possibly it really was. On the other hand, I went to London during lockdown and I just had half an hour for a short walk. I took some black and white photos. They are taken with the phone, so sorry for the quality. But the photos showed totally different face of a lockdown. It was terrifying feeling looking at such busy city which suddenly became empty and quiet. It wasn't the London we normally remember. There were only few people in the whole train traveling to London. The streets were empty, the city looked abandoned. I'm going to make this project I'm going to make another part. It's going to be like the third part of the project. And it's going to be a series of portraits of people with masks on their faces. But what I am going to look for is like a pandemic masks fashion, to see how people can personalize the masks and make their own manifesto even in the time of pandemic. So I'm going to start taking photos of pandemic masks fashion and see where it takes me. Thank you.